Hello.
Hello.
Hello, good day to you all. All well?
Enjoying the sunshine?
Yeah, I love it.
So do I.
I love the sunshine.
I had a depressed farmer last night.
Oh, because of no rain?
Well, I had one because of no rain, and the second one because they've cut their grass, and the forecast says it might rain on Saturday, and that might ruin their hay.
Oh, that is...
One's saying no rain, and one's saying there might be rain.
Well, I did look because of obviously far more important things, not than farming, of course, but I'll check for cricket because I need to know for cricket on Saturday. What do I need to take? Now, according to my phone, in Beaminster on Saturday, light rain and a gentle breeze. But only 9% chance, or no, 8%'s gone down. Oh, until you get to 2 o'clock, then it could be a bit heavier. Could be. If it lands on us, that's the key.
Yeah, but if once hay's down on the ground, if it gets rained on, it gets ruined.
It's no good, is it? It's going to be very.
Go in and have a cup of tea for 10 minutes and then come back out again.
You could put a big tarpaulin over it, Chris. Come on.
Oh, the size of the field. Yeah, good idea.
A big tarpaulin. That's all you need. Now, according to Dorchester on Saturday, the chances of rain are an hour later than Beaminster, so obviously it's coming down country rather than across. I don't know. We'll see. Nothing.
They also said on that hymn, we thank you for the breezes and the sunshine, and the soft, refreshing rain. They said, why didn't they ask, but the soft, refreshing rain at the right time?
Well, I don't know. I think too much nitpicking going on there.
I think you're right, Debs. I think you're right. I've got to be very careful. However, they could have cut the grass earlier. They could have done a few days earlier and got it up, couldn't they? I've passed lots of trucks full of cut grass and stuff. In fact, I've been stuck behind many the last few days as well.
Of course, you'd also get is somebody says, I don't want rain tomorrow. And somebody says, well, I do want rain tomorrow because I finished my harvesting yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, you see, they need to work together as a deanery chapter, don't they? They need to decide when the rain, they could share.
I guess the problem, though, genuine problem, is that if you've using the services of a contractor, which many do today, the contractor can only do one farm at a time. So if you were late getting in, you're going to be farther down the booking order, aren't you?
Now you're both being like Deb. You're coming up with excuses for farmers.
No, that's not an excuse. That's the reality. The excuse is you should have booked your appointment earlier. A bit like your tax appointment, Chris. That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't want to wear out the tax inspectors ready for you until after they've spoken to you. And then,
I know.
Then I've got to give them a good time of holiday for a break after speaking to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we are. So no excuses, whatever. However, it has been very nice. I do like the hot weather. And I did have a very sensible farmer at our PCC meeting at Mapperton the other evening who was saying that, you accept what comes because, one moment you'll be complaining you've had too much. But he was telling me that in the gate tracks and things, the ground is so hard, it's just splitting open at the moment.
Yeah, well, it has been a bit of a time since we've had any rain. We had loads of it, didn't we? It was cold and rainy in April, and that seems quite a long time ago now.
Yeah, we had a lot of rain between Christmas and April, really, didn't we?
That's apparently why we've got such good roses, because they had to wait a long time. But I don't know if you've noticed, but roses are blooming everywhere, and it's because they couldn't bloom because it was cold, and now suddenly all this warmth has made them better than ever. So
give you a welcome to Gardener's World with the Percy Thrower of the Lyme Bay Deanery. There we are.
I heard that on the Today programme.
Before we even get on to Barnabas, is that a lesson for us in this world? If we have to wait and delay because of tough times, we bloom even better.
And sometimes sometimes it's better when you've waited. Yeah, that's a good one, Chris.
Yeah.
Delayed gratification. very middle class.
But I do agree with you. My roses are, particularly the one by the gate, which I kept on being told was a rambling rector, but I know it isn't. And do you know why I know it isn't a rambling rector? Because it goes on flowering. As long as I keep deadening it, rambling rectors don't. Once they flower, they finish for the year. But this one, if I keep on deadheading it as I do, it just goes on to Christmas now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
I couldn't.
So I know it's not a rambling rector, but everybody tells me that it is, but I know it isn't. But that I'm not a Percy Slower or a David Austin.
I've
got a rambling rector in my garden.
Yeah. They have one they did have one in the church, but it had to be cut down because it had got infection, quite badly infected with fungus or
the
bugs.
Rose bush I've ever cut down with a chainsaw.
Is it?
It was that big.
They do. There we are.
And the rambling rector went along and killed an apple tree.
Oh dear.
Polly's had a severe haircut.
Oh no.
This is the same dog, but...
Oh no, Polly. No, Johnny. Good day. Good day to your dog.
Hello, Polly.
Our dog's fast asleep on the cushion over there, so she's fine. She's on guard. And Scruff isn't around, Chris, is he?
Yes, Scruff's lying on the mat behind me, breathing a big sigh of relief because Julia's taken Maisie to work today, so that means he doesn't have all day with baby puppy running and jumping on top of him and pulling his throat and his ears and attacking him.
It's a bit like when the curate leaves, you know. You breathe a big sorry like that, jumping up and down, you're pulling your ears, you know.
Yeah.
There we are.
2 weeks before that happens, Deb.
I know. I am really going to miss Helen very much.
Yeah.
Yes, it's great though. She's going. It sounds exciting, all that she's off to, and so she can lead them a merry dance instead of us.
Jane spoke to Fiona yesterday, and
how's she getting on?
Yeah, she's doing very well. She's typically Fiona, excited and taking the challenge in a stride, and etc. And I think she's still glorying in the beauty of the view out of her living room window, which just looks over the whole of Cardigan Bay and up into the distance. She was telling me yesterday that on the clear days like today, you can see the mountains in mid and North Wales, Snowdonia and beyond, up to Anglesey almost. It's such a...
Oh, how amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Moved at a good time, so she will see it at its best at the moment.
But I was saying at a meeting the other day, it's only when they go, you actually realise just how much they do and take off you.
Yeah.
Because when you're all together, you just get on, and then you suddenly realise. So I was saying to Joe, despite all the laughs and things we used to have, and blood, sweat, and tears to try to keep them on the straight and narrow, you do realise just how much they do and take off.
Yeah.
But it's great that you've done the job you've done with Helen and trained her, and off she goes into the brave world.
Yeah.
There we are. Well, dear viewer, this Sunday we're thinking about one of the apostles, St Barnabas.
Yeah, lovely Barnabas.
Lovely Barnabas. I'll tell you a little bit about him later, but I think Mr. Grask is going to read a reading in a minute. But we do need to have a pause first. We can have a pause while Deb strokes Polly, and we can just watch in stillness and quiet.
John chapter 15. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask in my name. I am giving you these commandments so that you may love one another.
Yep. Thank you, Chris. Wonderful passage. Shall I just read a little bit out of this wonderful book on saints so people get a feeling for St Barnabas? So Barnabas the apostle, though not named among the 12 apostles of the evangelists, Barnabas emerges in the Acts of the Apostles as one of the most significant of their number. He sold his estate and gave the proceeds to the church, since all things were to be held in common, and clearly he became a leader. He is described as a Levite from Cyprus. So, like his friend Paul, was from the Greek world rather than that of Palestine, and he introduced Paul to the leaders of the church in Jerusalem. He was sent to Antioch, apparently to guide the Christians there in their relations with non-Jewish converts, promoting the concept of all being one in Christ. He broke with Paul to go to Cyprus, and tradition has it that he was martyred there in the year 61.
So Barnabas is always called the encourager, isn't he?
Yep.
I think that's why a lot of people warm to Barnabas, because it's the sort of person that you'd like to know and like to have around. And where sometimes St. Paul comes over as a bit abrasive and, difficult, Barnabas, I always imagine Barnabas as like oiling the wheels and keeping relationships going when things were a bit tough. And he would have been, I imagine anyway, somebody who would just keep you going when things were difficult. And probably it's interesting, that he wasn't named among the apostles and, kept a low profile in some ways, but he was clearly someone who had a big impact day to day. And there are people like that, aren't there, who they're not the main event on a list of the big movers and shakers, but there are some people that make life better and keep things going and particularly keep relationships going. And they're really, really important, those kind of people. So I always think of Barnabas like that and have a real soft spot for him.
I think it's interesting, isn't it, that he obviously was a very important person in that early development of the church. He gave up his land and put his money into the etc. But there's no writings as far as we're aware from him. There's no letters to him as far as we're aware, whereas you get letters of Peter or letters to Philemon or letters to Timothy or etc., etc. Lots of writings from Paul. I always like to think that he was the person, as you say, Deb, that just got on and did it.
I like and there was a time many years ago, and both these bishops have retired now. We had quite a diocesan bishop who was quite clear on a vision and quite challenging on we've got to march forward and do X, Y, Z. And then our little suffragan bishop, he'd almost just come up and walk alongside you and put his arm around you and said, look, I know this is the direction we're going. Come on, we can do this together. And I think actually we need both types. We need the strong visionaries, the Pauls of this world, but equally, in order to enable that, a guy who just comes along and puts his arm around us and said, it's all right, we can do it. Come on, let's help each other out.
Yeah.
And that encouragement from that gentle guy, and both are valid in their styles of leadership.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess they enable each other. I imagine Barnabas probably was an enabler for Paul, because maybe sometimes the message needed a bit of lubrication and sort of, I think you're right, Chris. Yeah.
As you say, as the encourager, that's what he was for Paul, wasn't he? Encourage others to listen or to hear, or perhaps to respond to what Paul was saying. And I mean, it's often, you hear comments, or I've heard comments from people saying, oh, he and Paul fell out. I don't think there's any evidence they fell out. I think they just went different ways because, there was lots of work to be done, and the mess, they needed to spread to get the message across, didn't they?
Yeah.
It's a wonderful reading, that reading you read, Chris, isn't it? About loving, no greater love than that one lays down one's life for one's friends. And that's the reading of, and I think I've said it before on Rev Chat, it's often taken out of context, isn't it, on Remembrance Sunday?
Yeah.
Because that isn't what it was about. That reading was used, I think, by leaders during certainly the First World War to try and convince people that actually, go be good, go and get yourself killed for us. That's not what Jesus was saying at all.
Mm.
And I don't think what Jesus would have wanted either. But it is about being prepared to take that extra step, go that extra mile to support each other. And before we came on air view, the three of us were talking about how we can, support each other. We're losing colleagues, as I mentioned, with Fiona having gone, and you've lost Pete, and the curate's about to go, etc. And lots of the work doesn't diminish. Just the workers in the field that diminishes it, And how can we go that extra mile as colleagues and friends to support each other? And perhaps if we can give that demonstration of support, others will pick it up and work around us and with us as well.
Yeah. I think one of the little bit in that gospel passage that I always sends shivers down my spine is when Jesus said, "You didn't choose me, I chose you." And I always find that a great reminder, because sometimes people think, I've chosen to be a Christian, I've chosen this way of life, and it's certainly, I always think it's a great reminder that we've been chosen, not because we're any different or any better, but because Jesus chooses all of us. And I think I always find that really moving, that thought that we're called by name and we're known. And I mean, that's a sort of, I think that's a really encouraging statement, which is good that it's we read it when we're thinking of Barnabas, because sometimes you feel that it's a lot of things are beyond us and we're not sure we can keep going and all of that kind of thing. And I chose you, you didn't choose me, and this is the way to go. I think that's really comforting and also quite inspiring. So it's a brilliant passage. It's very, very dense, really. It's got so much in it, but it's very short, isn't it?
I think it's very short, and I just love, and I must admit, until today, I hadn't really noticed this about this gospel reading. The first and the last verses are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Love one another as I have loved you.
Yeah.
And then it ends, I'm giving you these commands so that you may love one another. And if there's any doubt, if there's any importance in what we have to do as Christians, it's love one another. God's chosen us. God's chosen to love us, each and every one. We do the same. We love our neighbours, even those that are hard to love.
Yeah.
I mean, the follow-on from that sentence you've raised, Debs, not only did God choose us as opposed to we choosing him, what has he chosen us for but to go and bear fruit, and fruit that will last? That idea of the message of Jesus Christ's love for us and our need to love others is an enduring message to go on. And when I was preparing or looking at this reading earlier in the week, if I have a baptism in the service, don't get many baptisms in services these days. We tend to do them outside, don't we? Whether that's right or wrong, theologically, you can argue, the viewer. I don't know. But this one's at a service in Hook, which I'm looking forward to, and they are as well, because they know the family well from the village. But that's where my thoughts about just a very short talk before, about the gospel reading, that, this baby's come, you bought the baby, actually, it's God prompted that and got you to come. And bearing in mind that it's Jesus that's choosing you as well as me and everyone else.
Mhm.
And how are you going to try and not so much live up to that? Because for somebody new or perhaps even a regular attender, that's a big challenge. We know that. You know, we see that all the time. But how are we, as a community of Christians in that place, going to uphold this new family to be able to even begin the challenge of living a life based on what promises they're making?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's upside down though, isn't it? Because it is a huge thing. And yet, you know, it comes back down to love one another as I have loved you. And it's almost like Jesus saying it's hard, but it's also really simple. It's about every day choosing to treat others and the earth in the way that you've been treated, which is with, you know, so much grace and undeserved love. And I think it's hard, but it's actually really simple as well. And yeah, I think it's genius.
It is. No, it is. It is. But it is the most difficult thing in the world, isn't it? Is to love somebody, and as you said, Chris, particularly to love somebody who you don't particularly feel a great deal of love towards at that moment because of, you know, something that's happened, or a dispute over a boundary fence, or the fact that, you know, they've said something behind your back. It never is easy. And I've said many times, and I always say, when I say the comment again, and I will say it more, yeah, many more times in the future, you know, it is one of the most difficult things in the world to be a Christian, because of that imperative to always love, and to love those who you don't want to at times. How would you say love your neighbours to a Ukrainian today who's been flooded out of their homes? You know, where do you begin to talk about love now? You know, it's an almost impossible thing, isn't it? And I don't know the answer.
It's and the other side, of course, of love is love can only be given; it can never be taken.
Yeah.
Because once you demand to be loved, it's no longer love.
Yeah. Very
but
true.
We can still offer our love, our prayers, and our support for our dear friends in Ukraine who have lost their homes, even if there's very little we can actually do about it from over here.
And there is a wonderful book which I had to read before I went to theological college. It was one of these things you were asked to read before, called Love's Endeavour, Love's Expense. And it's a wonderful book, and you can still buy it. The author died many years ago. He was a canon of Chester Cathedral. I didn't know him at all, but he was revered really in the Chester area. And he writes about what is our response to God's love for us. How do we respond to the love of God in our lives? And you know, perhaps it's that kind of thing we need to think about. And sometimes it's difficult to see God's love in our lives when we've got all kinds of things going on, or we have a crisis in our life with a family issue or something. You know, it's not always easy. Of course it is, and that's why it's difficult to be a Christian at times. How do we work out what that response? How do we see that we are part of the divine love of God, as I spoke about last week in services? How do we recognise that God calls us and chooses us, and He has a purpose for us? But He will always love us. We are all loved children of God.
Yeah.
There we are, viewer. A lot to think about.
Yeah.
And we're always happy to hear your comments, and we do get them, and we're very grateful for them. And it's going to be another nice warm day today for us here. So we've got lots of things to hide about. The tax lady will be on the Zoom for me very, very soon. Good on Nicola. And I hope I can convince her that I'm being honest and straightforward. I try to be every year. I don't think I've made any mistakes. She always makes some comment about my adding up. And I do like the calculator. She told me that my calculator is obviously broken and buy another one. But we will see. In good time. And Chris, have you got a busy week? Of your Scarecrow Trail is still on, I believe, in
The Scarecrow Trail carries on, and yes, the Scarecrow opposite me won the Scarecrow competition. I had the pleasure last Sunday of awarding the prize.
What was the prize?
Oh, the prize was a trophy made of papier-mâché coated in silver foil.
Ooh,
Which
wow.
is now about 8 or 9 years old.
Extravagant indeed in Loders. And how long does
a much treasured trophy, much in desire?
Yes, I bet.
And how long do the Scarecrows stay up for, Chris? If you want to go and look at
Sunday.
Till Sunday. So, dear viewer, if you're viewing this today, Thursday or Friday, you've still got a few days to go down to Loders. I did see them when I drove down to your house the other day, and I'm hoping to take Jane for a little drive through the village to see others tomorrow on our day off. So that could be good.
Yeah, well, it's a Scarecrow more or less right outside my house that won.
I know, I saw it. It looks rather large.
Oh, they are some very large ones. There's even like a 12-foot, well, 2 or 3 12-foot people on their, whatever you call it, stilts.
Oh,
things.
Well, we've had an annual kind of Scarecrow thing organised by the town council in Beaminster. I don't think it's happening this year, but of course the church's Scarecrow always had to be a vicar. So one year there was supposedly me, but somebody pinched the hat off it, and then next year it looked rather. It was a based on a model of Joe, but somebody put the face of the Vicar of Dibley on it, which didn't go down very, very well. However, Scarecrows are good fun at this time of year. And we'll also be praying for our farmers who are a bit confused as to whether they want rain or not at the moment. Those that have cut the hay don't mind. Those that are still doing it obviously would prefer it to stay dry. And we'll pray for them and for their needs as we'll pray for each other.
Yeah, and a reminder also that we are hosting the Archbishop of Canterbury in our diocese this weekend, aren't we?
Brownie points.
Yes, yeah, well. So, I mean, I don't know, some people might be going up to the cathedral on Sunday. I think there's a few from Bridport. Yeah, so Justin Welby's around and about.
If you want to see him, viewers, and you live in our kind of part of the world, which is down in the Golden Cap team, you can see him indeed in our neighbouring deanery of Weymouth.
Yes.
You'll be walking up and down Weymouth seafront with Bishop Karen on Saturday morning. You could offer him an ice cream. I hope it doesn't rain upon him, and that the sun shines on the righteous, so to speak.
Yeah.
As Deb said, if you want to go and join in the service, they're gathering on Cathedral Green at 3:30 on Sunday.
3:30, yeah.
And they're gathering on the green because they have a feeling that more people are going to turn up than probably fit into the cathedral.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't be surprised. That's 3,000 roughly. So if 3,000 turn up, you'll be in good company. And the Archbishop is going to say some words, and I'm sure he'd love to see you. I've met him before, of course, so I can't be making the journey over, but there we are.
You know, you're on good terms with all the high and mighty, aren't you?
I exalted company.
Yes.
He wasn't that
I'm surprised that you talked to the likes of me and Chris.
Yeah, and so am I personally, Deb. He'd be pretty lonely existence because he doesn't come down to visit very often if he's the only one to talk to.
Yeah.
No, he was a lot shorter than I thought when I was introduced him. I was, as everybody knows, I went to St James's Palace, St Lambeth Palace, a few years ago. I have been to St James's Palace as well. But however, I went to Lambeth Palace to do a presentation, which is good fun, and everything stops at 12 o'clock in Lambeth Palace. If for people who've never been there, conferences, studies, anything, it all stops, and you have to go down to the chapel in the basement, which is beautiful, for communion. And on the day I was there, and we all went down, and we were joined by all these, whatever they're called, the Archbishop's got these kind of people in preparation for training or something. They're all dressed in white robes, and they're lounging about on pillars and cushions. And the day I went, Bishop Graham Kings was taking communion, who was the Bishop of Sherborne, and he came to speak to me, and said hello, and whatever. And at the end, he grabbed me and said, "Come on, I'll introduce you to Justin." Yeah, so
My old mucker.
You're right, Deb. What on earth is a man like that doing, talking to the likes of me and you?
Yeah, so there we are in the vestry of the chapel downstairs, and Justin comes in, and Graham and he said, "Oh, hello, nice to meet you," blah, blah, blah. And I'm trying to think what you say to an Archbishop of Canterbury type of thing. And I said to him, he said, "I'm sorry, I can't stop very long." He said, "I'm on my way to Paraguay." Better. I feebly made some comment about, "Oh, that's good. Think of the air miles," type of thing, you know. And he said to me, "You know, people think my job is wonderful, travelling around the world all the time." He said, "But on some days when you travel through 3 time zones, you realise it's not as good as it seems." I remember him saying that. I remember him saying that to me. And but I also met Rowan Williams. You know that? Rowan Williams. He's a nice man, Rowan. But I only met him because...
Rev Chat has turned into all the famous people that the Reverend David Baldwin has ever met.
I'll tell you the funny story. But
Rev Chat will go on for months and months and months.
I know. This one will have to go out in instalments, won't it, Chris?
Yeah. The funny story about Rowan Williams, I went to see a friend of mine who'd retired. I was rural dean in Shropshire. I went to see him, and I didn't realise he was best mates of Rowan. They'd been at St David's together. I knocked on his door to say, "How are you doing? You know, you've just retired." He said, "I've got a mate." He said, "Come to see me." Come in. He said, I walked into the kitchen, and there was Rowan Williams sat at the table. And I must have stood there with my mouth open. And he said to me, "I'm just coming. I'm only the Archbishop of Canterbury." He said, "What do you say?" But there we are. He did turn up in Bridport once, didn't he? For service one Sunday. Do you know that?
No, I didn't know that. What Rowan Williams did?
When your predecessor was there, Rowan Williams turned up because he was on holiday, and he just went to Bridport for the service.
Oh, gosh, I love Rowan Williams.
He was lovely.
Yeah.
Now we're going to counter of when David Baldwin met Paula Gooder.
No, don't get him on that.
No, Paula, lovely lady. Maybe but I've met some pretty nice other people, like
Chris Grask.
As I was saying, I've met some pretty other nice people. Anyway, dear viewer, I'm sure they've met many people as well, and they can tell you next time, because it's been lovely to be with you. We're going to go, and we hopefully will be back together next Thursday, although I've got a feeling it's Rural Dean's Day, so I may not be with you. I can't remember. 23rd.
Right. Oh, well, maybe me and Chris will.
Yeah.
We'll go back to real life next week, Chris. Just,
we're talking about down to earth. Humble people.
Humble people
of this world.
As you are. You know, at least Chris has
met little ivory towers.
Yeah.
At least Chris has met the Scarecrow champion of loaders. What more could you want, Chris?
Oh, there you go.
Lovely to see you both. See you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye now.